Welcome to another edition of the program Frontier Opening Bell. I'm Temple Ashaju. With us on the show this morning, Joshua Odebisi, who is the banking analyst with Vetiva Capital Management, Ayodeji Ebo, the head of retail investments at Chapel Hill Denham Advisory Bank, and Wastani Petroleum, our own executive editor here at Frontier Africa Reports. Of course, he will be giving us some editorial considerations. Let's tee off with the markets. Yesterday, we've got Nigeria having a bit of a bump against the flat line. 0.08%. BRVM Stock Exchange was positive by some 0.35%. The Egyptian Stock Exchange marginally down as well, 0.09%. Kenya, where we have the Nairobi Stock Exchange, was positive by 27 basis points, and Johannesburg Stock Exchange negative by 62 basis points. Looking at the Eastern African headlines, Octagon Africa names Godwin Simba as new group executive director. You have in Kenya, the Tanzanian president signed a gas pipeline deal with the president of Kenya, that's President Uhuru Kenyatta, upon the visit of President Suluhu Hassan to Kenya yesterday. Rwanda's economy is now projected to grow at 5.1% this year, 7% in 2022. So that's the finance minister of that country. And then Mozambique, which is where all investors across the world are now keeping their eyes on. Nkodezi secures funding for solar projects, something that is supposed to bring about green energy. Bosun, you got the floor for this analysis.
Yeah, I got the floor to say a few things only around what President Suluhu Hassan did yesterday by that diplomatic shuttle between Uganda and Tanzania, trying to rally everybody around the new administration in Tanzania after the passage of President John Magufuli. I think that was good news. We need to see more of that happen within the West Coast. A gas pipeline deal with Kenya, then another deal with Uganda for energy as well. I think Tanzania is imprinting itself as a leader within the East African corridor. The finance minister in Rwanda was very optimistic that the economy will grow 5.1% this year, 7% next year. The only such a bullish outlook on a sovereign basis came from Zimbabwe, which was the finance minister said would be about 7.4 or 7.8% for the year. Some analysts who spoke with in Zimbabwe believe they could go up to 10% this year because they've gotten their currency under control. They've managed inflation so far. Inflation for about 656% last year. It's now around 108% in Zimbabwe. Very massive fiscal operation they've done in terms of cutting wages, managing resources, spending less of their tax revenue on the current expenditure, spending more into public expenditure. All these are very good news for Zimbabwe, and I think Zambia is also, Tanzania is going in that direction. Rwanda is also has all it takes to also move up in that direction. 5.1% will not be too much for Rwanda to achieve. The Nkodezi project is one solar project which is different from the LNG, which Total is doing for $20 billion US. That hadn't been under much problem, but as long as they can get this project done, that would be good. The force majeure by Total for 1 year over the LNG project is something in the news, but let's hope that they can reopen within a 1 year period and get that project up and running as well. And congratulations to Rwanda yesterday for President Kagame for hosting the MTN listing on that exchange. Thank you.
Impressive. Thank you so much, Bosin. Let's move on to the Western and Nigerian markets now, where we've got headlines, specifically from Nigeria at this point. The Debt Management Office floats NGR Savings Bonds for the month of May 2021. MTN Nigeria, Guinness earnings excites Nigerian investors. ICO Insurance first quarter gross premium up by 12.2%. Profit after tax lower by some 17.6% to 1.5 billion naira. CSCS, that will be the Central Securities Clearing System, the Nigeria's depository, sets shareholders meeting for May the 18th of this year. Tracked Africa Motors in Cote d'Ivoire, profit soars by 73% to over 707 million CFA franc in the first quarter of this year. And Ghana now overtakes South Africa in gold production. This is a very significant story to actually watch. I mean, it will surprise that that's really happened. At the same time, some investors are not so surprised. But then we've got quite a number of corporate stories and a bit of investment opportunity for investors there. Let me start with you, Ayodeji, but with some of those corporate headlines coming out of Nigeria.
Okay, thank you. I would like to just speak a bit on the DMO savings bond listing. And when you look at the savings bond, which is skewed for majorly retail investors, minimum entry is for investment is 5,000 naira, and with interest rate of 7.8% and 8.8%. We feel that when you look at where inflation rate is, yes, positive is still positive than leaving your funds in your savings account. And now coming to corporate results, you can see that overall, most of the results were positive. If you look at Guinness, we know that for last year, because of the lockdown, so when you're looking at it on a year-on-year basis, that impacted on the growth of about 19.7% year-on-year for Guinness to about 115 billion, and profit also improved by 35% to 1.8 billion. Also looking at MTN, which despite the expectation that the SIM card registration ban would impact on their earnings, we saw that 17% year-on-year growth to about 385 billion naira in their first quarter, and we saw PAT to also increased by about 42%, be very impressive, to about 73.7 billion. So we know that MTN just concluded the raising of about over 100 billion bond for 7 years, which would also help strengthen its ability to expand its network. And I think at the call yesterday, the analyst call yesterday, they also mentioned that they are expected to repatriate about $250 million worth of dividend. So I believe that the company doing well within that space. And maybe lastly is to speak with the agriculture stocks with Presco and Okomu oil. Both of them published very positive results, over 100% growth in their bottom line. And I think the major reason we can attribute to that is I would say the backward zone for most of the companies are looking at local opportunities because of the FX challenges, looking for how they can explore where options are available locally for inputs, and that I think has been positive for both Okomu and Presco. So by and large, though I know Josh will speak more on the bank, so I won't touch on that. But I think by and large, we saw even the oil and gas sector, Seplat, also returning to the positive territory. We know oil price was significantly down last year, and with the rise in oil prices, that has also supported their performance for Q1 2021. So yes, we feel this may lift sentiments in the market. However, it's maybe a dead cat bounce, because as long as fixed income yields remain very attractive, interest would be limited in the equities market.
Thank you very much, Ayodeji. Joshua, we have said here that MTN Guinness earnings excites Nigerian investors by way of headline crafting and framing. I mean, how exciting are these news for the markets, really?
Well, to some extent, they are quite exciting. I mean, if you look at the market last week, maybe before MTN had released, but we definitely saw a lot of positives. The market closed up about 90 basis points on Friday, yes. But overall, definitely the MTN news specifically is quite encouraging for investors. We've always known that, the pandemic had a sort of almost an uplifting effect on telecommunications companies earnings. So definitely investors who have been very keen to look in those spaces have, been excited by these results because they came in 43%, like Didi said, higher year on year. But if you look at the banks, it's a bit more of a mixed bag. I think the best performing bank that we've seen is probably Access Bank by way of profits. But then you look at even your heavyweight sort of like your GT and maybe your UBA. Definitely, and Zenith Bank was quite good. They still managed about a 5% year-on-year increase in profits. But most of the other banks saw, even Zenith too, saw declines in interest income, mostly from the investment securities. And this, although not unexpected, the significant decline year on year that we saw was quite a surprise in some cases. And that's all the more reason why Access Bank's performance was so impressive. So we've seen that reflected again in the way investors have really approached the market recently. There's been quite a lot of buying to the banks that did well and a little bit of sell down on some of the underperformers. But overall, this shows that investors are willing to keep an eye on results, and if they see stuff that is encouraging, they will dip their toes into the market again. If only just to take profits when there are some upticks, on the bourse. But overall, definitely you can see some movement based on the financial performances.
Thank you very much, Joshua, for that. Boson, I know that yesterday we had Onyeka Ijamad, who mentions that Ghana is now looking like the Singapore of Africa, given the developments and investments that we're seeing in that space. Can you relate that to the Ghana, to the gold production outputs that they're having at this point? They are now outpacing South Africa, given the challenges that South Africa is experiencing at the moment.
Well, I think that came from last year. South Africa went for a very hard lockdown in terms of the coronavirus, and that footprint, infestations and fatalities were not that much in Ghana, if you look at the numbers like South Africa. So to that extent, the mines in Ghana the miners were able to be in business for most of last year. South African miners were down on all fours, as it were. Later in the year, you begin to see, once they reopen, platinum and aluminum seem to be a bit more in terms of production and output because of the demand for those products by China and a few other economies. So gold seemed to be on the back footing for South Africa, while Ghana seem to have moved up there. But I think they're getting new investments, new mines, all open up. Gold, Ghana, for former name is Gold Coast, if you remember.
Yeah.
Before independence, so it's called Gold Coast. So if they take that title back, I think it's good. By the way, I just want to touch on what one thing I think Joshua may just want to speak to about the share price of FBN Holdings. The stock went up yesterday despite that big volume. Is this investors' confidence, or some folks are just interested in moving the numbers?
Well, I can't really answer that question directly because we don't know the minds of the investors that moved the stock up. I mean, obviously we know that there have been some talk around FBN for one reason or another pertaining to the association with certain individuals and some insider loans, questions around capital and the loans that they took out essentially. But I think when you look at First Bank's numbers, when you look at their financials, obviously the NPLs are still quite high and they're not as profitable as their tier one peers. But obviously in recent times they have been making strides towards sort of correcting those issues and getting back to the big leagues really. But it has stalled somewhat a little bit. I think maybe that was part of the reason why they tried to make a managerial change, but apparently they did not do it the correct way. They did not go through the CBN as they were supposed to. So I think that maybe investors are just looking at the new management that has been put in place by the CBN, or maybe it's just some people expecting that something will happen with the company later on and are just taking positions now in anticipation of that. But I think that with the right strategy, definitely FBN is still in a position to recover, and this is not, the death knell for the company. But there definitely have to be some real serious hard talks about their legacy debt issues that we've been talking about for the past almost 10 years. From so how high their NPLs have been. I think those are still their biggest issues, but they are still on track to solve them in the near term.
Right then, thank you so much, Joshua. Moving on now to the Southern African headlines. Pepkor raises 2.2 billion rands at South African bond market. It was overbought by 2.8 times. Mass Real Estate plans 300 million euros 5-year senior grain bond offering. Zimploy Holdings has got COVID-19 hitting exports, dragging profit after tax down by more than by about 49%, and that's all the way to $230.64 million for the 2020 financial year. Zimbabwe Central Bank keeps policy rates at 40% to continue conservative stance. That's what we saw on Reuters yesterday. Lusaka Stock Exchange in Zambia has launched a new trading app today at 8:30 a.m. local time. Bosun, let's come to you with the South African headlines.
Zimbabwe holding interest rate at 40% is quite good. At least for now, they want to see how things will normalize before we're getting close to the middle of the year. So in the manner of speaking, no one within sub-Saharan Africa, central bank is really moving interest rates at any time, not within the first half of the year, barring any whatever may happen this month or to the end of June. So try to see how things pace out. So holding rates consistent with some of the other central bankers, as it were. Pepkor remains a big name in South Africa's retailing business. 2.2 billion rand is a pile of money. So getting that bonds raised within the SA market is a whole lot of story around the confidence that is supposed in this particular retailer to continue making money and moving forward. And for the folks in Lusaka, everybody's trying to get a whole lot of things done better than before. I think we have an app here in Nigeria, sort of thing. If you have smaller markets like the one in Zambia, in Lusaka, launching an app, getting to get the hands, everybody, retail investors, put it on a mobile phone, everything where you can use to get more retail investors in the market, deepen the market. I think we need it. We need the technology. We need the digital space. We need innovation across the African financial market spaces. And I'm game any day, and I say congratulations to anyone who's bringing these innovations that further exposes and deepen the market for African securities exchanges. I say well done any day, anytime.
Thank you very much, Bosun. Ayodeji, Zimbabwe is going conservative with its monetary policies. Any outlook on that of Nigeria Central Bank? I know they have slated May the 25th for their MCP, for their MPC. Forgive me, please.
Yeah. Yes, for Nigeria, we're projecting that we may likely see a tweak at this next that a raise in MTR. One, we can see interest rates are already up, and they are above even the MTR at 11.5%. So when you check average yields in the bonds market, really up. Then we also look at even the short-term rates and T-bills at 9.75%. Beyond that, when we look at the voting pattern at the last MPC meeting, we saw 3 of the committees voting for a hike in interest rates, and we believe that there will be more justification, so we may get more of the members moving towards that direction. So if we don't see a raise at this month's or this quarter's MPC, then we believe that latest the next MPC, which will be in July, would certainly see a raise. But depending on the direction, if we're expecting that should at least still be in the positive region, and depending on how strong it is, and would also give the MPC members more more support for them to increase the interest rate.
Thank you very much, Ayodeji. Let's go northwards now and go see the headlines there. We've got Maridive and oil services incurs net loss of 2.2 billion Egyptian pounds in 2020. IPR Wastani Petroleum files for arbitration after Dana gas sale cancellation. Kala Holdings posts net loss of 2.55 billion Egyptian pounds in the 2020 financial year. Morocco foreign remittances was up by more than 41% to 20.83 billion dinars, and that's equivalent of some $2.3 billion thereabouts in the first quarter of this year. Joshua, anything to say on the Moroccan diaspora remittances, perhaps as it relates to Nigeria as well?
Well, I can't say directly that, I know anything about the specific policy, but if you look at the fact is that they're not the only ones who have seen an increase in diaspora remittances. I think we've spoken about the uptick that we saw in Egypt, and we all know that is directly as a result of the policies that they put in place to ensure that those remittances increase. And I'm talking about platforms that they created. I think Morocco was a part of that, and they did create a new platform in order to boost remittances and also to make it a more collective, effort. And we've spoken, I think, on this program about the fact that we need to directly market to the people in the diaspora in order to get them to invest and to get them on investment programs that would, lock them in to Nigeria or Nigeria's development in the long term. And I think that still hasn't been, I don't know whether that has been put as a suggestion to the people in government, but it is very important for us to get our diaspora remittances up. Unfortunately, the truth is that we heavily rely on diaspora remittances, and they have been on the downslide for quite some time now. And, now is really not the time for us to be seeing a decline in remittances. Really, it should be the opposite. But unfortunately, the global economy, for whatever reason, I think, employment levels and things like that might have negatively impacted them. Although this was the same thing even in Kenya as well. So, on a whole, it's very important that we look at ways to lock in people in the diaspora and get them invested in Nigeria and Nigeria's long-term development in a systematic way, not just sending money home to their families. That is, very much an individualistic approach where one person gets the benefit of people being abroad. But if we're able to make it, good for the whole country, I think it would also boost our economy, and also, of course, boost our foreign currency, receipts. That's really the most important.
Thank you very much for those analyses, Joshua. Really appreciate it right here. Bosun, your final editorials before we close the show.
I think the remittance story is something that is spoken about. I'm sure the financial gurus like Ayo and Joshua will speak to that. The whole Dana gas story between Egypt and this Wastani Petroleum is getting a little bit messy. I think they need to find a way to resolve it, because the Dana gas sale has been on the card for some time now. They are filing for arbitration instead of going to court. Well, let's just make sure that let's see how they resolve it in a very amicable manner and get this business up and running. Arbitration, or you go to court, well, they pop up sometimes in the world of business deals, so we understand that. But again, I don't think you should keep this gas company and this project down there. It's not in the best interest of the shareholders or the other stakeholders involved.
Thank you so much, Bosun, for that. Got a second for the remittances story, Ayodeji. I mean, Joshua already sets the context for that.
Yes, I think CBN, based on the news, I think Arise yesterday, that there's a confirmation that has been extended, the dollar for naira policy to encourage remittances, and based on the feedback, I think that there's been increase in the dollar balances of the banks, and I feel that part of what can the CBN may want to use to create confidence is they can be releasing like a weekly figure. It may not look interesting at the beginning, but as we see the figures, like the high earning window then, I know it took time before we began to see numbers, but it really helps for transparency, and we can see the trend on how this thing is been supporting. And so I believe that if the CBN can look at how they can begin to release the number, not minding that will not be interesting at the beginning, but hoping that would attract more people to, and that will provide more support for the external reserves.
Right, and thank you so much, Ayodeji Ebo, for those insights as well. Thanks a great deal. Really appreciated. Ayodeji Ebo is the head of retail investments at Chapel Hill Denham Advisory Limited. Thanks a great deal. Joshua Odebisi, banking analyst with Vetiva Capital Management. Very much welcome all of your perspectives shared on the show this morning. Bosun Amofaye, you highly appreciated, our editor here at Frontier Africa Reports. Thanks a great deal. This has been the show today. Thank you for being a part of it. I'm Temple Ashaju. Next time, we'll see you again. Bye for now.